Right, thank you very much. Okay, so legal doesn't match tax records on the last deed. You start with the municipality, you get it fixed through them. Name on tax records doesn't include a name on the last deed or something like that, right? Same thing, for some reason, I don't know why, because I was just literally talking to Ashley Zubali this morning, I should have asked her. That doesn't seem to be as big of a deal as legal description. But again, it's more that you might see a name on the tax records that you don't see on the title work.
Yeah.
And you just, that is something you just need to verify more than it's really a title issue, because of course you're looking for owners that the other thing that more often happens is a name comes through on the title work that not only isn't on the tax records, but isn't a name
it's just an error.
It is like, Mia is selling to Lisa, but Dave's name's on the title work along with.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, along with Mia, right? And I know you guys don't do a lot of commercial, but I'm seeing that more in commercial than I am residential. But 90% of the time when that happens, and we're gonna go down that and we're gonna talk about that later, that's when these quitclaim deeds, these land contracts, right? When people do their own transfer of ownership and they accidentally, it turns out that back in 1942, this guy bought an extra 10 feet on the side of this. Well, when he sold it, they only sold the original part, forgot about the extra 10 feet. So now Dave Layton's name's on this deed because he still owns this 10 feet that he meant to deed to Mia back in 19 whatever, but didn't. And I will tell you, seeing an extra name on the title work is a big red flag, and it's something you want to get started on ASAP.
Do you think you see them common to see them on like foreclosures then too?
Foreclosures are a little bit different because when you're gonna see names on a foreclosure, it's really not foreclosures you're gonna see them on, it's tax sales.
Okay.
Because, and matter of fact, I didn't even talk about tax sales because we've talked about tax sales so many times.
I was just looking one up right before we came in, so I was, it's in my head.
The only thing to know about tax sales is I guarantee you they don't have clear title. So if you have somebody that calls you and they want to sell a house that they bought at a tax sale, the first thing you should be talking about to them is quiet title. The very first thing, because tax sales require a whole lot of notice that you can't prove happened, and you're almost always, I'm finding, going to need to get that through a judge in quiet title.
So when you say tax sale, would that be like the sheriff's,
the people didn't pay their taxes,
right?
And the county auctioned it off for taxes, and you're the winning bid,
right?
And the documentation you need to clear title is not there, and I haven't seen a tax sale yet where the owner has had clear title and hasn't had to.
Good to know. I'm always concerned on the ones on auction.com, like that those are not clear either.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I kind of steer clear.
Well, if you're not getting title work and you're getting a quitclaim deed, you probably don't have clear title. There's a reason they're doing that, right? So at a tax sale, it's an auction with a quitclaim deed. I mean, there is not clear title there, right? Yeah.
It's good to hear that in a straight,
But you can obtain clear title through
a judge. Yeah, because what the judge will say is based on the evidence that clearly these people walked away, clearly they didn't pay their taxes, clearly it's sold on auction. Yes, I'm gonna basically judge that you have clear title, and then you're okay. But I haven't seen, I'm not a title rep, right? I'm not gonna tell you it never happens. As a broker, what tax sales have come through here, I've not seen one yet that didn't have to have quiet title.
They're scary.
Yeah. They can be great deals.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let's see, one thing I want to tell you about quiet title is, the reason you need quiet title 90% of the time is whoever should have signed a deed didn't. Right, so grandpa put his grandson on the deed and forgot, and 10 years later sold the house on a quitclaim deed to someone else and forgot to have his grandson sign off, right? Now you have a problem because you have a owner that hasn't been released. And quiet title through a judge is one option. Clearly grandpa meant to do that. This grandson has never come back and said to these people, hey, that's my house, da 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 da. But sometimes, guys, you just track down the grandson and the seller offers him, you know, I'll pay you $50 if you'll sign a quitclaim deed and clear off this thing that you know your grandpa sold me to. You were, you know, there, whatever. And Facebook can be very helpful with that. So don't skip that step of trying yourself to track somebody down,
What
right?
if there's a dispute in that? What if grandson's like, no,
Yeah, exactly. Then you're gonna have to go to court. You're gonna have to, right? But sometimes, and don't offer him money right up front. Sometimes grandson is like, oh, yep, that makes perfect sense. Sure, send it all. I'd be happy to sign it. Right, not send it, it has to be notarized, but still. Sometimes the other person's completely, sometimes they're like, well, what's in it for me? And then, you know, yeah, what's it cost to get quiet title versus what's it cost to pay this person to sign a quitclaim deed? Or when it wasn't done right the first time. So don't skip that. Don't go straight to quiet title. If there are people who need to sign off, see if you can find them. I have literally messaged people before saying, I see your name's Olivia Weaver. I'm not sure I've got the right Olivia Weaver, but if your grandmother was we're looking to clear a deed and could you please get back with me? And it has worked a few times where we've literally gotten the person be like, yeah, that was me. Yes, I'll sign it. And they come into the title company and sign and we cleared the title without having to do quiet title. Okay? All right.
Okay, but the quiet title has to go through a judge.
Illegal deeds. The prior deed was conveyed with a minor or an illegal alien without proper documentation, etc. Attorney. Right, that isn't anything. What this class was, and what can you do about it? You send your client to an attorney. These are things that these are now legal issues. We can't fix those. Okay, encroachment, either from your property onto the neighbors or theirs onto yours. As you guys know, Anna had a situation about a year ago where her seller's septic system was underneath the neighbor's property. Unfortunately, that could have been fixed without courts, but the neighbor wouldn't. And they had to spend almost over a year in court to finally settle it before Anna could sell the property. But so again, you might have to go to court. You find out the neighbor's pole barn has a little corner, you know, overlying your property. You know, do you make the neighbor tear down their pole barn? Some people would, right? Or are there alternatives? That's gonna involve lawyers in court, right? Sometimes there are alternatives. I've seen people do a property swap. Okay, you're on this corner. What if I sell you 10 feet along this corner, which will then encompass it? But then back here where you're a flag lot, you give me 10 feet, we'll just swap. And then the title, those that can be quitclaim deeds if they're done properly through the title company, right? And it's beneficial to both. I no longer have my pole barn on your property and I'm threatened to tear it down someday. You got something in return for it, or sell the neighbor that 10 feet, or if it's your encroachment, see if you can buy 10 more feet off the neighbor, you know, see if you can do a deed, a transfer for that encroachment rather than making them tear the whole thing down or you know, going to court over it.
I have a question on that. I have a situation right now in Homer that I need to talk to you about, but it was measured in not leaps and bounds. What's it called?
Meets and bounds.
Yes.
It's okay. Leaps and bounds.
It's your finger.
I can just see the surveyor.
Anyways, so to try to understand that part, so I just need to ask you about that after the class.
Yes, I'm not gonna be
Because
super helpful, but I'm
there's
gonna
an
be somewhat
easement
helpful.
And the garage is supposedly on somebody else's property, so yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So I need some.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just talk about that. I think that's a good one. First, it used to be title examiners could literally take a meets and bounds description and draw you, you know. They're not even trained to do that anymore. They can't. If it were me, again, I'd go to the township supervisor first because they know those properties. They understand the boundaries. They, you know, they can show you the meets and bounds in there. They should have that. And so I would start, I have literally gone, I went to Marshall City once and I literally sat down with the guy and I said, okay, here's what we have here, but here's what, can you show me what, and he did, he laid it all out and this is the easement and this is it. Okay, thank you very much. So I'd start with them.
Fetches our swords about a whack,
Yeah,
cause everybody's calling me, well, the garage isn't even on their property.
well, and that is the problem with fetch too, right? That's a picture. So fetch even tells you that these boundary lines might be off a little bit, because you know, they take a picture and it looks like that. But that's just because they superimpose those lines over the photo and it all needs to be shifted. It's just, yes, you can't, I have literally seen a title company require a survey because the GIS mapping looks like there's, it's like,
Come on,
yeah, there's that GIS mapping is known to possibly be off by
it's an
several
estimate,
feet.
not,
Yes,
if you want
exactly,
exact, it is, yeah.
exactly. Okay,
That's,
liens. The biggest thing I wanna talk about liens with mortgages is just understanding, we don't know what banks they are and what banks they aren't, but some banks require 5 days for a payoff. And we don't know which those are, okay? Title companies, again, it's one person working on 30 files where you're working on your special 3, right? They're not looking and saying, oh, this is Bank of America, it might take longer, or this is Chemical Bank, it might take longer, or this is, they're getting clear to close, ordering the payoff, right? So if you have any reason to think, and the biggest reason you would think that is if it's a large bank, especially if it's like a large corporate bank, exactly. They're not gonna order payoff until you get a clear to close, but nothing says you can't call the title company and say, I don't have the clear to close yet. I'm 90% sure I'm gonna have it by next week, but I'm also 90% sure this bank's gonna take longer for a payoff. Could you please order the payoff now? And they can, right? So that is being more proactive on your part, but you're gonna love yourself when somebody says, oh, that bank takes 5 days, and you're like, no problem, I ordered it last week. And it's like, shoo, right? Okay, so just making sure you understand that if you have any reason to think that the payoff might take a little longer, you can't schedule your closing earlier, but you can order that. Second mortgages, right? The biggest problem with second mortgages, and literally Talia literally went to a closing today where this was an issue. People don't understand that if you get out a HELOC or a second mortgage and you either never use it or you used it, but you paid it off, you don't just wanna pay it off, you wanna close it
Right.
and get a discharge. Or they do close it and get a discharge, but that was 10 years ago and they don't know where that discharge is. And I don't know why banks are good about recording discharges of first mortgages. They are not good about recording the discard charging of second mortgages. So as soon as you get title work that says there's a second mortgage, right? That needs to be a conversation with the seller. Did you know you have a HELOC, a line of credit on that? Sometimes they'll say, no, I don't. And it's like, yeah, you do. They think it's just another loan. They don't realize it's on the house. Or they'll say, I paid that off a long time ago. Great, here's what we're gonna need, and the sooner you start on that, the better. Talia's, this was the seller, the person who had the HELOC was the deceased mother. The son is managing the accounts. Son doesn't have a discharge in the mortgage. Well, they had plenty of time to order it in the 10 days, except for Talia saw that there was a second. She reached out to the son. He had to figure out He gets back to her and says, I'm pretty sure it got paid off. She says, okay, we need a discharge. call for the discharge the day before closing, it's gonna be 10 days to get a discharge, right? So it's not that anybody dropped the ball so much, it's just it took time to, so the minute you see a second mortgage, first of all, make sure they know how to get a payoff, but if it's paid off, that discharge is even harder to get. And you don't need, the title company feels like if we're gonna order, we wanna order the payoff because we're the ones on the hook for paying it off. So if you order the payoff and it's wrong, and they pay off the mortgage based on the payoff you ordered, they're in trouble for something you did, so they wanna order the payoffs. They don't care who orders the discharge. So you get that seller, and what happened was, of course, Talia got back with her seller and said, Bank of America is telling them 10 days, can you get it faster? And of course they can, because they can call their banker and say, I need this now, and they got it and they closed and, okay. So discharges of second mortgages, that's a,
I had one that had the mortgage was paid off. They had their first HELOC, which was paid off but not discharged, and a current HELOC. So lucky the two were from Kellogg Credit Union.
and that's the thing, right?
So-
Because I'm trying to think of the bank that everybody used to use that after the market crash in 2005, where it was a huge bank.
Huntington.
Well, Huntington is still around. This would be, it wasn't, it doesn't matter. I can't think of the name of the bank. But after the crash, it got swallowed up by another bank.
Yeah,
Where are those records, right?
Right.
So now you're calling a bank who wasn't even the bank that did that HELOC or discharged it. They'll find it, they'll discharge it, but it is not a fast process.
I think it's
so-
amazing how many come up from, 10, 15, 20 years ago on there. And then the people are like, well, we paid it off, but
Mhm.
it's still,
Well, and they probably got that discharge and put it in a file
and then
somewhere.
they don't can, yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing. All of us have a file in our basement or somewhere where we kind of throw stuff like that we know that we
Yeah.
might, and some of us are more organized than others. If you wanna kind of let, well, it might be in that box, go look.
Yeah.
Like, don't let them off the hook. If they have that discharge, we're done, right? The original discharge is perfectly acceptable, so if they have it, that saves everybody time. So you get them digging in boxes if you have to,
Mhm.
they need that discharge. Tax liens, the biggest thing to know about a tax lien is not only can the seller get the payoff for a tax lien way faster than the title company. 50 to 60% of the time, the title company can't even get the tax lien, they won't let them get it. They don't, they can't show that they have the authority to get it. So same thing, seller hasn't paid their income taxes, the IRS or the state of Michigan put a tax lien on them, you get the seller getting that payoff right away. Okay. Contractors liens, right? So I had a situation not that long ago where the lady died and nobody paid the snowplow. The heirs were mad at the snowplow people because clearly the place wasn't open anymore, but they kept plowing it and so refused to pay him and he put a lien on the property. The only way to get a contractor's lien removed is either pay the contractor and have him remove it, talk him into, come to an agreement with him. I think they agreed to pay half and he removed it, or go to court. Right, so getting a contractor lien removed, again, don't wait for the title company for help with that, you don't need them for one thing, it's a process that really involves the seller and that contractor. But they can't say, I don't care, I'm not paying it. You're not closing, you do not have clear title without that contractor lien being removed, so they better start negotiating with that contractor or calling an attorney now. Cause they've gotta get that removed. Okay, unknown easements, easements for roads, access, utilities, etc. Right? That can be hard sometimes because the title work will show an easement, but it doesn't tell where it is, what it covers. One of the things you do wanna do is when the title company sends you a title commitment, they also send you the supporting documents. One of the things you wanna do is pull up that easement and see if it expires, right? If it was signed 49 years ago and was a 50-year easement, it might expire in 2 months and, might have to wait to close for 2 months, but there you go. If you're looking for what the easement covers or where it is, again, the municipality, right? They're most likely to have some kind of schematic, some kind of drawing, some kind of an idea of where that easement sits on the property if you don't have a survey, right? Obviously, a survey will show recorded easements, so the other option is you ask the seller to pay for a survey, you have your buyer get a survey, but again, you don't wanna get title work in, see that there's an easement. We are all sending our title work to our clients, right? Yes, okay, thank you. I think a lot of agents, probably the majority of agents figure we cleared it, we're good. Well, it's not your title work, it's theirs, you all, which I'm preaching to the choir, but I think a lot of agents do not send it. But you send it to them, they don't notice to look at an easement, and then last minute, they're like, what's this easement thing?
Most of them don't even look at it.
Well, that's their problem, at least you
Right.
said, then they can't say you didn't tell me,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Or then they ask questions and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's best to talk to title about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I have
But-
had heard agents say that they don't send it because they don't wanna like confuse their client or
Okay.
anything like that.
Okay.
I'm like,
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, can you imagine standing in front of a judge? Right? Well, their title work said, well, did you give them their title work? Did they know their title work said that? Well, they got a copy at closing after they signed.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So you knew and you didn't tell them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't see where you're now looking at some kind of a
Does
claim.
every title, cause I know there's so many different title agencies, does every title agency give supporting documents too? Like I know Chicago Title does the,
Denise does, or
You know,
Denise does.
As far as I know, I've not,
Okay.
but
Devin does.
again, yeah, I would imagine they have to. Oh, and they're probably also trying to save themselves time, so you don't call them and say, can I get these supporting documents so I can look at this, but if they don't, they will. Yeah.
I just had one
Have
at
them.
Berkshire, she sent it too, so.
Yeah.
I think they, isn't that common?
Yes.
To,
Yes, I'd be surprised if.
yeah,
they
I
don't.
was just
Yeah.
sure, cause
I don't know of
feel like I've
anyone
used
who
every
doesn't.
single title, and I know
Yeah.
like title work always looks different depending on the
Yes,
use, but I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. no, I've never had someone not send me the supporting documents.
And I had asked Lisa the other day a silly question. And it's probably my brain fog going on, but can I send title to a potential buyer's agent that hasn't even wrote an offer on my property?
And I said yes,
Mhm.
because it's public information,
oh,
it's all public records.
it's not a silly question.
No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
I'm like,
I mean, I would have known that.
Okay, good.
There's nothing confidential in there. Every one of those things are
I mean,
in
that's
public record.
public, not public, right?
Right.
Good to know.
Let's see.
No, I just shared it because of the whole easement.
Oh,
garage issue thing.
I just wondered if they asked for it.
Unknown ownership claims.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm getting so many of these, but lately these unrecorded land contracts are just coming out of the woodwork. So if your seller tells you I bought it on a land contract, right? Fine, but find out right away and they won't know, right? Don't say to them, was it recorded? I mean, you could ask them if they could say, oh no, I took it down to the courthouse myself and I recorded it. Okay, probably it's recorded, but find out as quickly as you can, was that land contract recorded? Because where that's really coming in as a problem is, if it's a normal sale, a cash sale, conventional sale, most conventional sales, no big deal, we know how that works. At the closing, he's got the signed notarized land contract, he's got a valid document. And at the closing, he closes with these people and then turns around and pays off those people and they clear the, it's fine. But FHA and VA and Michigan, those things, they don't like flips. And you close two deals at one time and suddenly they think it's a flip. And you can't close it.
Oh.
Yeah, so Brian Jeletich had that issue just recently where the land contract wasn't recorded and the financing wouldn't allow two closings or two title transfers because then that looks like a flip. And what they had to do was basically the buyers closed with the old owners And there was a side agreement that didn't go through the closing between them and them, that they understood that they only get their payoff and that the rest goes to him. But that's how we had to do it. So if you have a land contract, make sure it was recorded back when it was written. If it's 2 or 3 years old, no big deal, it's not a flip, right?
So if you pay off a land contract,
Yes, that too.
that would have to be discharged also, or
Yes, yes, you pay off a land contract, the seller has not signed the deed over to you yet.
right,
When you pay off the land contract, then you wanna meet with the seller again to say, okay, now we've paid you off, we want a deed. And frankly, we want title insurance, because nothing stops that seller from putting liens on that property, they're still the owner.
right.
So you wanna make sure there are no liens you don't know about on that property, you wanna, which is why often I tell people, when you do a land contract, I would do a preliminary title, but I don't know that I'd pay for title insurance at the beginning of the land contract, because you definitely
Wanted at the
want
end.
it at the end, although you definitely want a PTR, because what you don't wanna do also is pay all this time and find out there's a huge title issue that we all could have known about back at the beginning. So I would run a PTR, make sure that there's nothing of concern, but then I wouldn't actually get title insurance
Right.
until.
Do those go like on where they're not discharged a lot, the land contract, like after it's paid off? Do you
Yeah,
see
because
that?
because
just
you know,
don't
they've
think
been
about it.
on for 10 years and I
Right.
just, oh, take it off, and they don't even think I need to get a deed now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I bet
Yeah.
you would see that a lot. It seems like you would.
yeah, so land you see that they bought it on a land contract, make sure it was recorded, make sure if it's paid off that they actually have a deed and a discharge. First right of refusal. I'm here to tell you, this is not a title issue, this is a hidden issue, right? I've never seen a recorded, well, condos, okay, let's talk about recorded first right of refusals. Condos often have a first right of refusal. Condos often have it where before a condo owner can sell their unit, they have to give the condo association first right to buy it. And the condo association might wanna do that because they wanna protect the ownership, who knows, right? I've never seen a condo association exercise that right, but you do have to do it. So if you're selling a condo, you wanna make sure you say to them, okay, we need to get with the condo association, let them know that you have a buyer in place, and make sure that they're not gonna exercise that first right, cause you don't wanna be figuring that out at closing. Other first rights of refusals are rarely recorded. So a first right of refusal is, I told the neighbor, well, you know, I told the neighbor that if I ever was going to sell this, I'd give him first right on these 5 acres, right? That is an agreement between these people, but
Like a
first of
verbal
all,
agreement
if it's
or something?
verbal, doesn't matter. If it's verbal, it doesn't matter, right? There's nothing you can do about a verbal, sorry neighbor, you're
Okay.
out.
I was gonna say, I was like.
But if it's written, it's probably not recorded. So Casey had a situation, this was a few years ago, where it was on a lake. And this guy had, in writing, given one of the neighbors first right of refusal on the house, totally forgotten about it. They got to within days of the closing, and the neighbor said, no, I wanna exercise my,
Oh,
First right.
man.
yeah, because they wanted to buy it for their son or their grandson or whatever, so he would live near them. And, you know,
Wow.
not recorded, not, so how do you?
But
So
written,
then what happened?
What, yes, written.
was written,
Yes.
but
So
now
it
it's
stands, but
so
it's
that's
written.
legal?
It's
Oh,
a-
dang.
It's a contract.
So even though the other people were almost to the closing table, they just lost the ability to
Yeah.
purchase them.
Now,
Oh.
what they should do is sue the seller for damages, because he
Mhm.
should have told them that. And, you know, their damages are, their emotional damages and their shit, we don't get to move last minute damages are paid out. You know, you haven't spent a ton of money before you close on the house, but
Or they're like selling something. to-
selling something or had already
Man,
moved
that
out
could
of
be
the
a
old
hot
house
mess.
and don't have a place to
Mm.
move into,
Mm.
yeah. It was not pretty. It was not pretty, so I guess, what do you do about that? I suppose the smart thing to do is, because you never know, that maybe every
Just
listing
ask.
appointment you go to, all these questions you have, one of the questions you add is,
Yeah.
have you
Promise.
ever promised
Yeah.
first right of refusal to somebody that they could have it first dibs if you,
Mhm.
because had somebody said that to that guy, he probably would have remembered.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yep. Okay. Vesting deed errors, chain of title problems. The one that I had to go and sit down, with the guy at Marshall, and map everything out. This was a crazy one. So this farmer owned this. And little by little, he quit claimed, and 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 you know. And one of these quit claimed looked like, he quit claimed and then quit claimed more, right? This guy goes to sell, right? And this is the parcel number. So he sells these people this.
Oh, it doesn't have
But
the
he-
extra?
He tells them, of course, that they're,
That's,
because in his head, they're getting the whole thing.
Mm.
Well, the people move in, there's a barn here that they're using,
Oh,
there's a
shoot.
driveway here that they're using, had their wedding in the barn, got married in the barn, right? This gets worse. But all this time, taxes are being paid on this parcel because they know who the owner is and they're taxes aren't getting paid on this parcel. So the township comes and there's a post here,
Repossesses.
no, tax posts a notice that it's going to go into tax foreclosure. Comes home from work, sees the notice,
Oh,
goes to the township, pays up the taxes, and now owns
that chunk.
the barn they got married in their driveway. I know.
I'm like, what?
Wow,
This buyer's mom came in here in flip flops and told me she was gonna own this place. How are you today? Oh, I'm fine, cause I'm gonna own this place soon.
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
cause this is my fault, right?
Cause this is Remax's fault, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Believe it or not, we got this all figured out in a way that worked out okay. Luckily, the tax records were also wrong. The tax records included the whole thing.
Gotcha. So they'd been paying,
They had only been paying for this, but the tax records showed that
it
they
was
were
all
paying. Yes, but anyway, this is why Mama hates quitclaim deeds not done with an attorney.
I mean, to be fair, that neighbor's a little bit of a douchebag.
Oh,
Like.
that's another story.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that,
like,
The
what-
neighbor's a
right,
big douchebag.
yeah,
The
like,
neighbor came to their wedding. He knew what he was doing.
oh, for sure.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that was dirty.
That's-
Yeah, like
That was dirty.
he saw what had
He should've
happened
knocked
and
on their door and
immediately
said,
took
"Hey,
advantage,
guys, I
right?
saw this note, did you see it? No. he
The neighbor
took
went
it,
in, bought it.
bought it for taxes. Yeah, crazy. But, you know, this guy's dead, this guy's dead. You know, I mean, these people
Right.
are gone. This was about, yeah.
That's like, why not?
I know.
Literally just,
Yeah.
you're not. you
Well, at first, we're like, I'm sure there's a reason why, and then we sit down and, first of all,
No,
I
like
said,
that,
I can't talk to you about this, you're not the client, send your son in, I'd be happy to talk to him. So the son and the girlfriend come in and it's like, huh, you're right. Yeah, title company missed it. Township missed it, appraiser missed it,
everybody missed it.
everybody missed it.
Did they sue? Who's in trouble for that then?
Actually, what ended up happening was, girlfriend, very high strung. I adore her, we have become, I love her, she loves me, very, very high strung. And was like, I'm moving,
Hmm,
you know, F them,
sure,
I don't care how we fix this, I'm not living next to people who would steal my land.
understand.
Turns out, the property was worth quite a bit more than they paid for it, right? They sold it, made quite a bit of money off of it, moved to it, they're happy. They understood that we didn't do this to them.
Right.
Understand.
Yeah, but they didn't get that land back.
They did not.
No, they sold this part to someone else. And the neighbor kept that part and they just moved away. Yeah, and bought a house they love and they're very
Not
happy.
to live next to neighbors, I'll do that too.
Right.
Well, she wouldn't, right? She's like, I'm not living
Oh, for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Gosh,
here. Yeah, she was a wreck.
a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. It was probably the hardest
Ugh.
try to fix something I've ever had.
How
Yeah.
long ago was that? the agency?
This building. Yeah, cause I remember her mom walking in and she said, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to this place someday.
How many times have you heard that?
That's the only time
Oh.
I said it to my face.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yeah, no, that's a big one.
Behind me, you're good, sweetheart.
Okay, so, but now that we've told the horror stories, right? I mean, what do you do about this, right? Well, the biggest thing you can do is, especially when you're talking about leaps and bounds, right?
Leaps and bounds.
Yeah, leaps and bounds, yeah. Is doing everything you can to make sure that the measurements that are on, that are on the purchase agreement, that are on the title work match the measurements of what you're being told you are buying. Because,
Who do you go to?
well, because everything was wrong. If you just look at legals, you would have never guessed it, right? The thing is, if you looked at this measurement and looked at this measurement, you'd know they weren't the same and you'd say, wait a minute, we're missing 100 feet here. Right? That's the only thing that literally, okay, so if you're buying land, get a survey. Well, I'm sorry, Amy.
Oh, that's all right.
If you're buying land,
Notes on it. Thank you.
yeah, if you're buying land, get a survey.
Mhm.
That would have figured this out. A survey would. Because the surveyor would have marked here and they'd have been like, no, and I said, no, that's not your, right?
Is that
It
was
would
the
have-
acreage that they were buying, like? a
Yeah.
cer-
Yes, it wasn't a lot,
Right,
but it was 3 to 5 acres
yeah.
Yeah.
I usually try to
Yeah.
encourage people when they're
Yeah.
buying.
to get a survey. Okay, but the other thing that, cause we are talking about deed errors, right, deed errors. And one thing a lot of people don't know is that sometimes you do a quitclaim deed and an attorney does prepare it. And there's just an error in the deed. The attorney typed it up wrong. There was a typo. They had their secretary type it up and she put 333 instead of 433 for the foot or whatever. It's not that the right amount of property wasn't deeded over, it's that there's an error on the deed, which can be fixed with an affidavit of Scrivener's error, meaning the attorney files an affidavit saying, this was an error. This is what it should have been. Here's the, title issues and what can you do about it? This goes back to that first thing we talked about, right? In a title company coordination department, they're gonna email that attorney. Then they set the file aside and work on others. And then next Tuesday, they'll pull the file again, look in their email. Oh, I didn't hear back from that attorney. They're gonna email them again, right? They don't know that attorney was elected to be the township prosecutor or whatever, and he's never at his office and he's not reading his business email and he didn't see it. Can you tell I'm talking about an actual story?
Mhm.
And, not because they're lazy, but because they're working on 40 files and they're making the calls but this office literally sat empty. There was no receptionist, there was no attorney, he was off doing other things. He'd essentially retired from practice and I happened to know him. His kids went to daycare with my kids and then I found him on Facebook and called him up and said, hey, I don't know if you know, but the title company's fixed in a day. By just direct communication, which the title company doesn't really feel like they can/should do. You can, right? So if you think there's just an error on the deed, you track down the attorney and you get the attorney to fix it. Okay? All right. Let's see, anything else? Quit claims. They're a mess. If you see a quit claim, right? Just, see if there's an attorney signature at the bottom. That's one big thing. If there's no attorney signature on the bottom, if the witness is not an attorney, it wasn't prepared by an attorney, then have reason to worry that there might be title issues and start working on that right away. Okay, just a quick thing about disbursements, right? The disbursements must be made to the deed holder. So if the deed holder is, you know, Jim and Amy, the check's gonna be made out to Jim and Amy. But if it's to the Shoup Family Trust, it's gonna be made out to the Shoup Family Trust. And Jim and Amy went and created a trust, but never opened a bank account and made a few deposits with the trust name on it. And so they've got this check they can't do anything with because they don't have you can't, Jim and Amy can't cash a check made out to the Shoup Family Trust. Only the Shoup Family Trust can. So make sure that if it's a trust, that people understand the check will be made out to the trust. Make sure you have a checking account in the trust name so that they can do something with this check once they get it. Usually checks can't be split up. Well, can you write half to Jim and half to Amy? No, we're writing it to Jim and Amy. The only time it can be split up is, of course, after a divorce. And I shouldn't say only time. I did just see a check get split. Do you have insight on this?
I do.
Yeah,
Here I come.
I don't know if you know this, but Sue retired from Chicago Title, so yeah.
One thing about the bank account,
Yeah.
if they wanna wire, that wire still has to go to a bank account with both names. They
Yes.
can't take by just wiring,
It into Lisa's account, right,
that it can go.
It has to go to an account with both names on it, yes. Good,
So the
thank you.
trust account and the bank account have to match by
Yes.
name, right?
Yes. They can split it up after a divorce, but in order to do that, they need to see a copy of the signed divorce decree where the judge says who gets what. You can't just say, well, I get the house and he didn't, no, they have to see, so if you know it's a divorce situation, if you see two names on the title work and you say, who's Betty? Well, Betty's my ex-wife, but it's my house. Okay, you know,
Let's see.
as tenderly as you can, you have to say, okay, I don't care, I'm just telling you, the title company's gonna need to see a copy of your divorce judgment to prove that you get the money and Betty doesn't get it.
What if the trust indicates, I think I had one of these early on, there was 3 kids. And they did write checks to all 3. There was two signers out of the 3 kids. But then the checks were dispersed to all 3. I think the trust specified, maybe specify that.
Yes.
Like I
the
think my
trust-
dad has ours set up a third, and a third, you
Sure.
know? And then if that third like would go to Bob or, you know,
Yeah.
if I wasn't here or whatever, I think that's got it very,
Well, that,
Usually like a line item.
yeah, I think
for
it's
that.
it has to be very specific to
does
do
have
that,
to be very
right?
specific,
that
yes.
makes sense because that's what I'm going through right now with my mother-in-law's passing is the way that the trust is written. The proceeds from her sale will be divided into 2 and then further split to the individual beneficiaries of
Into
that.
2 accounts and then those 2 accounts will split.
Split, yeah.
Right, it's not supposed to be split.
Yeah.
I just had a closing with the Day family, all 3 kids.
Oh.
But all 3 kids were on,
The trust,
the trust.
yeah.
Yeah, see, just 2 out of the 3 of us are on them.
Yeah. The point being, you can totally see this.
Yeah.
You can't just give money out.
Right.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
have the 3rd child come along and be like, I was
Where-
supposed to get it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They're not gonna cut checks unless they have written proof,
Mhm.
documented legal
this is supposed to-
documentation that
Yeah.
this is what is supposed to happen. Yes. The other thing I just wrote down is, and Sue can tell me on this one, I'm not sure if it's trusts and estates, but needing a social security number. So it's
Yeah.
estates, right?
States.
If you're closing, if
And
you're
the
the,
trust.
and
And
the
the
trust.
Yeah.
If you're the executor of an estate or you're closing in a trust, they need the tax ID number
Mhm.
for the estate or for the trust. So you'll wanna make sure, cause I don't know why, but the title companies never ask for that until not just before closing, but at
During
closing,
closing.
during the closing.
Mhm.
And so I've had it many times where they've had to be like, I gotta run home and get that. So just know that if it's an estate or a trust, they need the tax ID number for that estate or trust.
so how about when the wife passes away, they didn't record her death certificate, but they're both still on the trust. I just had that.
Well,
So we
you
had-
have a death certificate.
We had
so
to,
bring
we had
it.
to bring it,
Yes,
and then he did have to bring the tax ID.
yes,
Because he was non-family member handling the 2 deceased.
yes, there you go.
So
That's
they could
exactly
be
it.
so
Yes,
like detailed.
yes, yes,
Cause we don't want you coming back to.
Yeah, I
later
mean,
with
it's just,
closing.
there's so many different,
yeah.
you learn a lot.
You do.
There's so many different things
Yeah.
that come up.
And then the last thing, if any of you don't know this, then I apologize because I don't even know why I put this on here, because you should know this. But obviously at a closing, if anybody wants to get reimbursed for anything, there should be a proof that they paid it. So a receipt, an invoice or something. You can't just say, pay me back for the well and septic. I paid for the well, I need to be paid back. If you're gonna do that, you have to show them a copy of the receipt you got when you paid for the well and septic.
I don't know if I was listening to all of it, but when you're looking at your title work, make sure you're reading the exceptions.
Yes, not just what needs to be fixed, but what they're not covering.
Yeah.
Because they're basically saying, we're not covering these things, so if there's a problem with one of these things, we're not covering it, you don't have title insurance to cover this. And
Or-
that's where utility easements and those kinds of things. come
Or
in.
like if you have property and a farmer wants to buy it. And it says in the
PA
deed,
113,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
it says in the deed,
Mhm.
no farm animals, no blah, 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 and you go to closing and closure doesn't know any of that. And
The first house Freddie and I bought was only 2 acres, I think. But years ago, the farmer had signed an agreement with the government that he would farm the land or wouldn't, I can't remember which it was. And for that, he got a tax break, but he also wouldn't split the land for 30 years. And we were buying it in the 29th and a half year of this, and we had to wait 6 months to close on our first home
Wow.
for this agreement to expire.
Isn't it crazy how something can change and control what you own that was written 30 years ago?
Yes.
That blows my mind. This
Yes,
person's gone dead, but
yeah,
this paper controls what I can do with my
Exactly.
property that I bought.
because it's recorded on the property, it becomes a living thing of its own.
So what if, let's just say this. Are you laughing at my wording again?
I just love you.
The enthusiasm.
Yes, you got a real like
Yeah.
feisty.
It's
Are
funny,
you
like,
are you flipping us off?
to people, right? Because they'll be like, now.
Exactly, and that's what's happening right now.
The brain's
Let it
gone.
go. Yeah, let it go.
That's good.
What if?
So let's just say husband and wife own the farm for 100 years.
Mhm.
They pass away.
Mhm.
They pass it down to one of the kids. But in their estate or their will, it says it cannot then be passed down to anybody else. That has to stay in the family. Can that happen?
Yes, we've got that in the family right now,
Mhm.
where the parents died.
Mm-hmm.
The house is supposed to stay only sold to family members, it's in the deed.
It's
Yeah.
in the deed.
That is
Okay.
very short-sighted.
It is.
Wow.
Sometimes kids
So-
can't afford them.
Yeah.
And
Or
maybe
don't want it.
Don't want it.
Yeah,
Or-
it's too much.
Can't afford the
Or
taxes on it.
That side of the family had all daughters in there, I know.
Nobody wants to run a farm
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I was asking for my own personal,
Of course.
because I didn't know that could happen. So
Yes,
now
it
I
can
know.
happen,
Your deed restrictions.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it has to be recorded. You just can't
Now,
say that. to
let's
the
just
state or
say,
no.
let's just say in Sue's case, right, it's been 100 years, there are no family members left who even want it, so now this property pretty much has to sit vacant and dilapidated. I would imagine you could go to court
Yeah.
and get a judge to rule to vacate that deed restriction. I would think that you could, but he's not gonna do it lightheartedly. I mean, you'd have to have a preponderance of proof that that's what should be done, because he's going against the lifelong wishes of the person who put that in the deed.
But it has to be, like, you just can't
Recorded.
say, yes, you just
Yes.
can't say that in their estate or
No,
will
it's
or
gotta be
anything. It's gotta be
recorded.
recorded.
Okay, we are down to the end of the hour, but we've really only just got a couple of, really one thing, and this is the escrow agreement. This is exactly what I was talking about to Talia when we first started class. Title companies really don't like to hold escrow agreements anymore, and I will. But here's the problem you have to understand, the reason they don't want to, it's not if everything goes the way you want it to, right? I'm gonna hold on to this $3,800 and the repair is supposed to be 2,000. And when the repair is done, get me a receipt showing the repair is done, it only costs 2,000. I will give the contractor 2,000, I will give back the remaining amount to the seller. That's what's supposed to happen, and when it's written that way and it happens that way, great. Okay, then you get the case with Jimmy's property where the seller put money into escrow for this contractor to do this work. The buyer then gets mad at the contractor and wants to fire that contractor.
Oh,
Have
God.
it, the escrow agreement says, I
Only
can
pay
only
that.
pay this
Contract.
contractor, right? Right?
Oh.
There's example number one. Example number two. Contractor gives a bid, they know that they're competing for the bid, so they give an aggressive bid. They say, yep, we're gonna use him, we escrow the money, contractor comes back and he's busy now. He doesn't wanna do the job for that low price that he bid it for. And so again, or he just never comes back, right? He doesn't return their calls because I don't feel like coming back for that $400 job when they were all hounding me for an estimate and the work doesn't get done. Buyer doesn't get the work done. And now they want the money. No, right? The escrow agreement says this, I can only disperse per the escrow agreement. The people who she got mad at the contractor and wanted a different one had two choices, go to court and sue the guy to release all that, or come to an agreement, and they did. She and the old seller came to an agreement, signed a new escrow agreement, worked it out, but I don't wanna be in that position. What I really don't want is to be holding on to funds that I then have to turn into the state and cheat with the state, and I don't know. So my escrow agreement has to say what happens when it does go right, and what happens when it doesn't. So for example, if the work isn't done by this date, I may immediately release the money back to the seller. You lose, buyer, you didn't get the work done, right? And you give them plenty of time, but if you can't get it done in a year, you're not getting it done or appeal that, we'll see if we can get an agreement to amend that, but I have to have instructions on not just what to do if it happens, but what to do if it doesn't.
A clear path to
A
not being
clear path to
responsible for
not
it.
being responsible for money
Very
that's
good.
not mine.
Smart. So when we need that, like I will be needing that, just come.
I brought it. Ah! This is actually from 2018. I think I helped Shelley write this, so I'll just read it to you. Concrete repair of walkway and driveway to be completed by Ayers Basement Systems. The quote and detailed description of work attached. Work is scheduled for December 7th, weather permitting. This was before the closing, so if the work cannot be so December 7th would have been before closing. If the work got done before closing, fine. If the work cannot be performed due to weather and scheduling prior to closing, the remaining balance due of $2,466 plus an additional $1,761.50 for contingencies will be paid into escrow by seller at closing and held by Remax Parrott Associates. Work will be performed as soon as possible, within 3 business days of the completion of the work, but that's the other thing. I'm not taking a phone call from the buyer, go ahead and release it, and then a lawsuit from the buyer, I never told you could release it. I'm having a written document from the buyer saying it's done to our satisfaction, please release it. Okay. Buyer shall submit a written request to Remax Parrott Associates to release any amount due to the contractor. This request will constitute buyer's acceptance of the work. So you can't come back later and say, well, they didn't do a good job, we want the money back, right? Completed and acceptance of the condition of the property. Any amount remaining in the escrow account shall be immediately released to the seller. If buyer fails to get the work completed and submit a release of escrow to Remax Parrott Associates by June 30th, 2019, and this was written November of 2018, this escrow agreement shall expire and all funds will be immediately released to the seller. Right, so now I'm not stuck holding the bag on this money while these buyers just are farting around or whatever, so it's very hard for me to write a one and done standard escrow agreement because it's different every time.
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
writing an escrow agreement, I wanna be involved.
Okay.
Of course. But that gives you the basics of what you're looking for.
Yes,
Hits
yes,
all the
this is
little
a-
things. It hits the
This
things.
makes you think of the things,
Yeah.
exactly, this makes you think. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Yes.
Setting us over. to-
Yeah, you were with us,
really.
She was in there, you was dropping them.
I was.
Oh,
She
she
lets me put in.
Programs not like golden.
Well,
A lot.
and the more they come up, the more risk it puts me at. So it does make me nervous, but if I say no also, we can't get these deals closed.
Right.
So I want to say yes, but obviously I'm saying yes to something, and even the title companies are like, this is too much work. So I need in return for us to be super careful so we don't stay doing this.
They used to hold it.
They did.
I remember.
In my situation, it's after closing.
Well, and what they're, just fair warning, what they're also not starting to not do anymore is they wouldn't hold an escrow, but they'd write a check to the contractor. Right, so Crooks Plumbing's gonna do it, so at closing, they'd write a check to Crooks, give it to the buyer, so that when the work's done, the buyer can just hand the money to Crooks. Well, that's happening, not Crooks. But the contractor's not coming back, the buyer's not getting the work done, the title company has an unclear check
Held by
sitting
the,
there, held by, yeah.
I have a
And
check
no-
sitting on my desk right now for a contractor.
There you go.
Yeah, but it
How
was
old is
made out, oh, not very long.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna be done before December
Gotcha.
second. But
Yeah.
it's there,
Yeah.
waiting for it, and they asked me to hold it, they go, when we're moving, I don't wanna lose this check. I go,
Well,
you know,
okay,
I'll hold it.
Yeah, well, apparently title companies are starting to not wanna do those anymore either.
I get that.
Because it's just,
It's a cash.
if it's not cashed, now they're again holding money that doesn't belong to them, that they have to send to the state.
So our business meeting starts at noon?
Yes.